Gentlemen, it's come to my attention that a breakaway Russian Republic crippled Pakistan is about to transfer a nuclear warhead to the United Nations in a few days. Here's the plan. We get the warhead and we hold the world ransom for $1 million.
Hey, how's it going? It's me, Vashthlos. Thanks for tuning in. I'm currently level 88 on my smart accuracy stacking Juggernaut, Smart's a lot Mixmarticus, and he's got 73,000 or so accuracy rating. I would say it's functional for tier 16 maps. We're definitely dying still sometimes, but that's not the point. We're a budget version of smart accuracy stacking Juggernaut, so that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to show you a leveling POB to get you through the campaign with minimal investment. I'm going to show you how to swap over to accuracy stacker at level 68, and then I'm going to share the mapping POB with you and some of the items that you should be working towards while gathering more currency. The three endgame versions of this build I would recommend are Doriani's, Mageblood, or Purity of Fire. Purity of Fire is the most expensive. You also use a Bloodline Ascendancy that disables your utility flasks, and then you use tinctures and mana flasks instead, which is a little clunky, but you get Ring, which opens up a lot more intelligence, especially when you consider all three of these endgame versions of the build are using helical rings and simplex amulets. But don't worry, the budget version of the build isn't using any of these expensive items, and I'm only going to stress you out with those near the end of the video. So if all of this sounds cool to you, stay tuned. I'm going to go over it now. First up, I'm going to go over the essential building blocks of the build, and we'll start with the claws, because you're not playing this build without these claws. You need some Foulborn Hand of Thought and Motions with the 5% increased accuracy rating per 25 intelligence modifier, and then the most important stat that you're concerned about otherwise is the increased intelligence. You want that to be 12%. It rolls from 8 to 12, and you'll need 2 of them. They used to be really expensive, but they've gone down in price a lot, thankfully, because they're not that rare. For the helmet, you'll want intelligence, energy shield, some resistances, as well as accuracy. That accuracy on the helmet is pretty important. Untouched Soul, super powerful accuracy stacking amulet that I talked about in my previous version of accuracy stacker, and I still love it. I love Untouched Soul. We just keep a lot of our sockets empty and we get a lot of free flat accuracy. Feel free to swap it whenever you get that simplex amulet. I'm sure it'll be soon. Synaptic rings. This is for our Breachlord Ascendancy, and if we wear 2 of them, it means that we ignore elemental resistances for lightning damage, and because of the Windbreak boots or the Stormrider boots, we are dealing primarily lightning damage through stacking that accuracy. Moving on to the stats for the ring though. Accuracy rating, intelligence, resistances, energy shield. It's the same for both of them, and it's honestly the same for your boots too, but you're not going to be able to get energy shield on them. So movement speed, resistances, evasion, intelligence, dexterity is also okay. I think you actually prefer the dexterity alongside the intelligence on those boots, as the more the merrier. It's just more flat damage, and we're going to be stacking a lot of percentage increases on things like our belt. But first you're going to use a magnate, because we're using a Balbala, if you haven't noticed by my triple flask setup yet. And this is just to help us save passive points while leveling, and once we get our rare chest piece, we can get rid of this for a Stygian Vise that has the Hunter modifier percentage increase attributes with some intelligence and other useful mods. This is the runner-up chest piece before your rare chest piece, and it is the Foulborn Incandescent Heart. Increases and reductions to light radius also apply to accuracy. This pairs nicely with one of the energy shield masteries that I'll go over in the POB section. And it's just kind of a simple band-aid. Just use this until you have that rare item. Yeah, we don't really benefit all that much from the extra chaos damage, but we certainly benefit from the elemental damage from hits taken as chaos damage, because that's just 100% ignored due to being chaos inoculation. And we get a lot of flat accuracy from Shaper's Touch, and we get some percentage energy shield increases through strength as well, which is just a little bit of icing on top. We're not focusing strength or anything. So that is the gear in a nutshell. The graphs are both graphs, and you are primarily concerned about that percentage increase intelligence mod. There's a super expensive corruption implicit that you can maybe get if you're lucky, but just letting you know, it's 240 divine orbs on average, and it is 1% increased melee damage per 20 intelligence or something like that. So good luck. I am not foreseeing myself get one of those, but it would be nice. Yeah, yeah, that's the gear in a nutshell, I'm pretty sure. So I'm gonna go over the POB now and try not to waste any more time. So when you open up the POB, don't forget I've got a couple of drop-down menus for you across the different tabs. Items, skills, and passive trees all have tabs for you to go through. And let's go over the leveling portion of this POB, and that would be Searing Bond Flamewood totems. Put on Flamewood, Combustion, lesser multiple projectiles, and that is an incredibly powerful leveling setup if you ask me. You do so much damage with no investment whatsoever. Clarity, Vitality, you get them early on. Eventually you'll attach Arrogance so that they're reserving life instead. Petrified Blood, Purity of Elements, Frostblink and Shield Charge for mobility, and then Flammability for a little bit of damage and Ignite chance. This carried me through the entire campaign. I love this as a leveling build for Marauders. The items that I would recommend in tandem with this leveling set of skills are Mystic Refractor, as each additional projectile from Flamewood really does ramp the damage up to 11. And Mystic Refractor allows you 3 additional projectiles at level 34. So pick one of these up as soon as you can. When you're in Act 1, though, you'll probably want a wand like this, where you get +1 to all fire skills, and then some damage over time multiplier. Spell damage is also nice on top. I can't believe I actually crafted this as soon as I got out of the Twilight Coast. Gold Rim. What can you say? Elemental resistances, get them. Solaris Lorica. This sucks. Don't use this. Use something else. I was using the worst gear possible in anticipation of this being a budget build. So really, slap anything on. This is what I had in my stash. Shaper's Touch. You can use any other gloves you want up until this point, but once you can equip Shaper's Touch, they're never coming off. Torch Oak Step. Use whatever boots you want up until this point, but as soon as you can equip Torch Oak Step, you should use these boots until you can get your accuracy stacking boots. Amulet. I didn't use one. Use whatever you want. Rings. Look at these. They're terrible. They're so bad. But early on, you'll probably be lacking in dexterity. So try to find a ring with a little bit of dexterity on it, and a little bit of extra intelligence never hurt. I think you might actually need some if you want to use the Mystic Refractor early enough. The flasks. I've used a bunch of life flasks, some mana flasks, a quicksilver flask. Wow, crazy. Grafts. These are the grafts that I used early on. Softcraft of Cinders, and it's the erupting one to where if you Warcry, it makes additional projectiles spew out. And then there is the Glowing Silhouette, which is the guaranteed graft that we all got as our very first one. For these jewels, I didn't have any. These are my jewels whenever I was done with the campaign. That is the leveling build. Let me show you the leveling tree. This is as far as I got on the leveling build. So I made a beeline, basically for Ironwood, and that's for the totems taunt enemies around them. As soon as you pick that up, you can do whatever the heck else you want. You can pick up life, you can pick up more damage, you can make a beeline for Ancestral Bond. More totem life is how you scale the totem damage, by the way, on top of totem damage, but the projectiles are really what's doing a lion's share of the damage. Dot multi, chance to ignite. Those ignites do add towards our damage cap, or ceiling, I think is the right word. Elemental Overload, because we have terrible crit chance, we might as well pick up the 40% more elemental damage. Life, resistances, more intelligence pathing. All of this works pretty well with the actual endgame versions of the build pathing. So if you have a bunch of currency lined up, here you go. If you don't have currency lined up, you're going to have to do a whole bunch of swapping over towards this. This is probably what you're going to look like as soon as you swap at level 68. Once you can equip the claws, once you can equip the Windbreaker boots, once you can equip the Shaper gloves. Those 4 items are what will allow you to swap at level 68. Without them, you are not going to deal any damage. And the budget version of this build is already struggling for some damage. So keep that in mind. I'm not trying to convince you to play this if you aren't aware of what you're getting yourself into. If you are considering playing this budget version of the build, you probably just want to play the build. You don't want to play and farm on another build. So that's kind of who this is for. You leveled up, you swapped over to accuracy stacking. Let me talk to you about what you'll be using in your maps. Starting with the main skill, Reeve, Nightblade, elemental damage with attacks, multi-strike, volatility, damage on full life. Because we're Chaos Inoculation, full life is a guarantee. Precision, Grace, Whirling Blades, Purity of Elements. I mean, what do you want me to say? Resistances, movement, evasion, more accuracy. That's all there is to say. Because we're using Untouched Soul, the more empty sockets that are green that we have, we get more flat accuracy, and a lot of it. So we'll be using this list of skills for a very long time until we can replace Untouched Soul with something far more expensive like a Simplex Amulet. So safe to say, this is it for a long time, guys. Before we move on to the passive trees, I want to talk to you about a ring that I used to swap over at level 68, and that would be the Heup of All. This is in the import swap dropdown in the items section, and it just comes with all elemental resistances and all attributes, which at level 68 to level 72, you're still kind of stressed for. So I found these rings to be a lifesaver. That's really all there is to it. You're going to use these as placeholders until you can get your synaptic rings, and the synaptic rings are for your Breachlord Ascendancy, and you'll probably swap away from the Breachlord Ascendancy once you transcend reality and morph into one of those 3 true endgame versions of the build. Here's another useful stepping stone for you. On your way to defeating the Breachlords for the Bloodline Ascendancy that lets you ignore enemy lightning resistance with those synaptic rings equipped, I would recommend this Elemental Mastery that has a 15% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. Super powerful, can't recommend it enough, and very useful on your way towards that Bloodline Ascendancy. Now it's time to go over the current passive tree that I'm using. We've got some maximum elemental resistances. Corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you because I don't have it on a jewel yet. We're using a brute force solution to transform all this strength and radius into intelligence. We have 2 transcendent spirits in radius of our brutal restraint, which gives us a lot of flat accuracy. I think this one is about 1,200 accuracy rating, and then this one is like 1,400 or so accuracy rating for all of the dexterity and radius that is not allocated. We have nothing in this jewel socket right now because we're still poor. You're going to use this little cluster right here, right? Everything that's connected to the thing that I just unallocated on your way to your first cluster jewel. You'll take those out once you do have your first cluster jewel. You'll probably fill up your cluster jewel like that so that your split personalities can go in there instead and get some extra distance traveled. But we're not there yet. We're still broke. We're still broke. We're not going to pretend we have any cluster jewels yet. Intelligence. Increased attributes. Chaos Inoculation. Mana Reservation Efficiency, because we have 3 auras on. Ghost Reaver for Leech. Increased light radius because we're using Foulborn. Oh, what's it called again? I can't really. Incandescent Heart. Foulborn Incandescent Heart. We're probably not going to be using this cluster wheel at all once we get rid of that chest piece for a rare item. We need some Mana Leech, which is why we're mainly using this. Gain accuracy rating equal to your intelligence. 10% of Leech is instant per equipped claw. Ghost Stance for extra survivability. And we're probably going to move out of this south area as soon as possible once we don't need the reservation efficiency or the increased accuracy for damage. That's the current passive tree. Balbala. I don't think I have Balbala allocated on here yet for some reason. But Balbala. That is it. That's everything that I have to share with you with the budget version of the build. I'm going to go over the Genesis tree setup on how you could target some of these items for super cheap. Yeah, you thought I was going to forget to talk about the Ascendancies. Undeniable, Unstoppable, Unflinching, and then the budget Ascendancy from the Breach Lords. Heup of the Storm. Your hits ignore enemy monster lightning resistances if all equipped rings are synaptic rings. Then plus 32 intelligence. Genesis Tree Lightning Round. First, Graft Item Womb. The only thing you care about? Heup Curation. Everything else? Directly up the middle, one on the right, one on the left. Time! Next, Equipment Item Womb. 1000% increased attribute modifiers, attack modifiers with reduced chance for life mods and physical mods. I'm not actually sure if the physical modifier is the best choice there, but that's the one I chose. Reroll the sockets 150 times. 33% chance to be fractured. Then, increased helmets chance, increased armor chance. 300% more chance for intelligence requirements. Reduced chance for strength and dexterity. Time! We're done talking about the Genesis tree. And that is how I got all of my rare items, besides my rings. Last but not least, I told you I would stress you out with some of those expensive items from the in-game big 3 versions of this build. And that would be the cluster jewels. That's what they're going to look like. Is a fractured 35% increased effect. Energy shield, intelligence, attributes. You're going to want at least 2 or 3, with super min-maxed versions having that 4th. You're going to want things like Emperor's Mastery, incredibly rare, incredibly expensive. Emperor's Wit, really rare, pretty darn expensive. Not mind-bogglingly expensive like some of these other items, but still very, very expensive. Sublime Vision, this is one of the most expensive items in the game, as that Purity of Fire mod is absolutely insane. Bound by Destiny. I am not 100% on the price of this, but I imagine with the increased intelligence modifier, it's pretty darn expensive. Brute Force, super cheap. Forbidden Flame. Indomitable Resolve is what this person is currently using, but I've heard a bunch of different options. Palsteron has a great video as well, going over some of the end-game versions for this build. I'll link it down below in the description. Split Personality. This is entry level. These are like 140 Chaos Orbs or something. Price might go up, price might go down. Storm Shroud. I'm not sure if this is actually necessary, but it seems to be something that this guy's doing. He's using it for Corrupted Blood and then ailment immunity. Watcher's Eye. This is part of his Sublime Vision that will help fully convert the other elemental damage types to fire. And then this is for the remaining 50%. Belonger's Touch. I had this drop for the first time last night. It was crazy. They're like 20 Divine Orbs. Super, super rare. I had no rarity on me. And it just dropped out of nowhere. Very exciting. My first one ever. Definitely a chase item. Simplex Amulet. My word, I don't even want to think about how expensive this is, but yep, this is what you're aiming for. That's what you're aiming for right there. Helical Rings. You will want one with increased accuracy rating and then intelligence. It's also got some other shenanigans going on. The crit multi, I hear, is an important mod as well. You might also notice that these have incredibly high values, and that 50% might not be enough to push it up all that way. But you're right. These are also mirrored. These were mirrored with reflecting mists, and that is how they got the values up to incredible amounts. It doesn't have any crazy corrupted implicits on the Shaper's Touch. Mageblood! Mageblood! And then here's the Doriani's prototype version. How did he get it with a Hunter's influence? You gotta be kidding me! Stop! Stop that. Simplex Amulet. This is the belt that I was talking to you about in the gear section. You'll want something that looks similar to this if you're not using a Mageblood. He is using the Bloodline Ascendancy that gives him +1 ring and disables all his utility flasks, so that's what this would look like. You probably wouldn't be using three writhing jars, maybe. Maybe he uses writhing jars just to apply his leech to. That could be pretty useful. 2 tinctures. More commonly, I think people will use mana flasks next to the tinctures so that they can sustain them for longer periods. This is the jewel the guy is using in his Stygian Vise. +2 intelligence, strength and intelligence, energy shield. Not really that crazy. Here are the graphs. These are the monstrosities that cost 240 divine orbs. 4% increased intelligence, and then that disgusting corrupted implicit, 1% increased melee damage per 20 intelligence. And then you just look over here, he has 4,379 intelligence. My word. My word, that is absurd. He's got a double clarity prismatic eye, Watcher's Eye. Aspect of Carnage for more damage. Yeah. They all kind of end up the same way. If you can't tell by now. Simplex amulets, helical rings, percentage increase everywhere that you possibly can. Buying the most expensive jewels in the game. Tons of cluster jewels. So there you go. That's everything I've got to share with you about my budget version smart accuracy stacking Juggernaut for 3.27 Keepers of the Flame. Hopefully you found it informative. Hopefully you found it entertaining. And hopefully you'll hit the like button, you'll hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment down below because they all help out a whole heck of a lot and your support would be no different. Now I want to further emphasize a few things about this build. Number 1, this build is terrible. Please do not play this build if you are anticipating to go into bosses and annihilate it like the other endgame versions of this build. No, that is not what this video is about. This is to help people who cannot even come close to affording the real building blocks of intelligence stacking, accuracy stacking Juggernaut, and just want to dip their toes in to see how it feels. Sorry if that's a bummer. I don't want to pull the wool over your eyes, so I think it's necessary that I stress reality as often as I can when it comes to talking about these budget builds. And that's all there really is to it. I'm not here to trick you into playing this build. I'm here to help you get your foot in the door. So what else is new? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because sailing is going live tomorrow in Old School RuneScape, and I'm going to use the end of this video as a little bit of a channel update. I am a longtime enjoyer of Old School RuneScape. If you're unaware, I'm working on a free-to-play to Quest Cape account. What that means is I had to farm my early bonds by hand on free-to-play, and as I unlocked members, I would chip away at quests, and earning those bonds through my own farming became easier and easier. But this new update has nothing to do with Quest Cape. There's some quests that I probably have to knock out in order to fully enjoy the new skill. But that's what it's all about, is enjoying the new content. And that's what I plan on doing. I am really excited for Sailing's release tomorrow on the 19th of November. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. You're the absolute best. You know what my plans are. I'll be playing a little bit more of 3.27 on this budget version, Smart Accuracy Stacking Juggernaut. I'll be playing the new skill Sailing on Old School RuneScape in just about 12 hours. That's probably going to be the foreseeable future for a hot second, as well as a little bit of League of Legends sprinkled in between. I'll be posting the clips as usual on the YouTube channel. Check them out whenever they go up, and hopefully I'll see you guys here next time. Peace out. Have fun.